All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Part 2 stand part. Honourable members, I wish to advise you it's debates on clauses 5 and 6. I invite some member to seek the call.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry. I call the Honourable Member Charles Chevelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What's the Tahitian greeting?
Your Honour. Mr. Chairman, the Minister didn't deign to reply to the concerns I raised around Part 1. I hope he's not going to take that approach to Part 2, given that this is the only scrutiny, as I've said, that this bill's going to get. Sir, I spoke to the Chief Parliamentary Counsel a couple of weeks ago. He's a fine man and he does a fine job. He told me that he was undertaking a task back in the United Kingdom, that he'd be there for some time, but that the government had kindly agreed to facilitate his secondment to the United Kingdom Public Service by arranging for him to act as, to continue in the role as Chief Parliamentary Counsel, and for there to be an acting Chief Parliamentary Counsel appointed in his place. Now, if that's the reason that the National-led government is rushing these parts of the legislation bill through the House, then I would have thought it would be incumbent on the Minister and on the government to advise the House of that fact. There's been no such disclosure, no such attempt to explain that that might be the reason for this apprehended urgency to deal with the provisions in Part 2. And just to recap those provisions, they update an antiquated piece of legislation. Everybody agrees it's antiquated. It's legislation from the 1920s when government departments were run in a very different way to the way in which they're run now. And as I've said earlier, the Labor opposition has no problem in substance with those provisions. We reported the legislation bill back to the House from the Regulations Review Committee unanimously and supportively after having heard evidence from a number of senior officials, former Chief Parliamentary Counsel and the Attorney General as well. So there's no issue with the provisions themselves. Our question is, why is it intended that these particular parts of the legislation bill should be severed and brought to the House to be passed under urgency in the way that the Minister has brought them forward, dressing them up with the legislation relating to the census in a bill titled The Duties of Statutory Officers, Census and Other Remedial Provisions Bill. Well done, Minister, on your imaginativeness. It's always entertaining, but on this occasion it would be nice to know why it was thought necessary to deal with the matter under urgency, because as Mr Mallard said in an earlier contribution, we don't in this Parliament legislate in respect of individuals to their detriment. That would be a bill of attainder or legislation of that nature. It's unconstitutional, we don't do it. But if that principle is correct, then also it would be inappropriate, to say the least, to legislate for the private benefit of any individual unless we were very clear that that's what's being done. And as I said earlier, sir, if that is what is being done here, it ought to be done openly rather than in some sort of covert fashion. So I would like to hear from you, Minister, about why it is that the urgency is attached to the provisions concerning an acting parliamentary counsel. And I would also like to know, as would members on this side of the House, how these provisions might apply in practice if, for example, the current holder of the office of Chief Parliamentary Counsel is away for some time. What is the intended tenure of any acting Chief Parliamentary Counsel? Might we be contemplating quite a long period of that person's tenure, up to, say, 2 years? And is that not something that ought to be disclosed, declared and debated openly at least in this committee, because as numerous speakers have pointed out, this is the only occasion on which that discussion will be able to occur. So, Minister, I do urge you to use this one and only opportunity in the process that you have invoked to advise your fellow members of Parliament of what the position is in respect of this particular part.
The question is, I call the Honourable Trevor Miller.
Mr. Chairman.